The third section of the test will be a short answer section. This section can include a stem of a historian's quote, picture, or table or graph. The students will be asked to do some specific writing and historical skills in addressing the stem or stimulus. There will be 4 short answers. The students must answer these in 45 minutes. And this will count towards 20% of the overall grade. The short answer section will cover the historical skills and themes in the class. So the stimulus will be asking the students to cover comparison and contrast, contextualization, periodization, interpreting historians' arguments, synthesis, or chronological reasoning. I realize that this will create large concerns for you and your students. How do you provide this much information in a 45-minute period when you have to address 4 separate short answer questions? The good news is that you do not have to write out full essays or even paragraphs to the answers. Your students will need to provide quick replies to the stimulus with a strong reason. This means that students cannot bullet point, and students cannot provide a response without any analysis. However, students can provide a quick 2 to 3 sentence response that includes a direct answer to the question, use of a historical skill, and reason for the argument. My plan is to tell students who struggle with writing to always include a because with a reason and a statement of significance included in an argument. A few comments about this. First, have them follow the format of the exact parts of the question. Second, provide direct answers to each part of the question. Don't feel like you have to elaborate like in a long essay. And third, students should identify and provide the specific skills that are being asked in that particular question. The next section is a long-form essay. Students will have a similar final section to the previous free response section or FRQ. Students will choose from 2 questions to work on. 1 essay question will be expected, and the essay will be completed in 35 minutes. This section will now be 15% of the total weighted grade. The long essay will follow one of the main skills, comparison and contrast, continuity and change, causation, or periodization. So students will both be providing the substantive issues from history and one of the major skills. There is no one way to teach these skills. I realize that all teachers have different methods for teaching, even if essay writing is about skills, guidelines, or rules. However, I would like to present one option for helping students. I use the following guideline template to help students approach the different styles of historical essays. The students will face multiple types of essays. I would suggest when writing thesis statements they do the following. For a continuity and change essay, the student should have 1 sentence on change. Then their second sentence can be dedicated to continuity. If the student should face a different type of essay, for example, if they should end up facing an essay on causation, they could have a thesis statement which starts off with a sentence on the cause and effect relationship. The next sentence then could state the overall significance of that cause and effect relationship. A third possible essay that the students will then have to face could be that on periodization. In this particular case, their thesis statement could start off with 1 sentence on the uniqueness of the time period, then have a second sentence that contrasts and shows the uniqueness of the previous time period. A third sentence could finish off the thesis by demonstrating and contrasting with a time period after this period. Another type of essay would be the comparison and contrast essay. In this case, the students could have 1 sentence on direct contrast, 1 sentence that would be dedicated to a direct comparison, and then a final sentence that would demonstrate the significance of the comparison and contrast. I provide my students with a template for how to attack the body paragraphs. In this template, I suggest starting off with a topic sentence that has the direct historical skill that is being asked for. Once they are done with that topic sentence that allows for grouping and allows for that to take place, they then use the rule of 3. The rule of 3 is to provide 3 concrete examples from history that are briefly explained, and the students provide the significance for each one of those examples. Finally, the students provide a sentence that is an analysis of comparison contrast, causation, or significance of period. This also allows them to address that contextualization part that's so important and new to the AP rubric. I usually don't suggest the students to write a concluding paragraph to most AP essays because there just hasn't been a point on the rubric. This time around, it's a little bit different. Students must demonstrate synthesis, where they can demonstrate that the things they have been talking about connect to a different region, place, or era or time. I would suggest a concluding paragraph that does exactly this. It won't wrap up the issues that have already been talked about. It will bring up this issue of synthesis. But by doing that, they are fulfilling another part of the rubric, and they're doing it clearly and explicitly for the reader. One other note on these types of essays. If a student should face an essay that talks about the historical skill of interpretation, I suggest to the students that they do something called weighing. In this type of way of looking at historical argumentation and interpretation, what a student does is they provide an overall argument, meaning they provide an argument in which they state the argument they're going to disagree with. Then they're going to use the transitional word overall, state the argument that they want to make, and then provide a weighing as to why their overall argument is better. There are several reasons why this is a really good tactic for the students to learn. First, it demonstrates that they really understand history is about interpretation. Second, it allows them to weigh out the arguments. And third, it shows the complexity of their thought to the grader at the AP reading exam place. The students are going to be asked to do a number of different types of essays, and the rubric has changed. The new rubric starts off with a thesis point for 1 point, which must address the historical skill that is being asked for. That means change in continuity, comparison contrast, periodization, and cause and effect. The second major thing that students must do is provide for evidence, which are 2 points. In order to get both of these points, the students must provide about 5 pieces of evidence within their essay, and they must make sure that when they explain these pieces of evidence, the evidence are connected back to the historical skill that is being asked to do in that particular essay. So for example, the following essays are going to be asked for from the students. The first, possibility, could be a change in continuity. They would have to make sure that they provide evidence to back up their argument, and that would be for 1 point. In order to get the 2 points, they would have to make sure that the evidence that they provide will then at that point connect back to the historical skill of change in continuity. If they both provide the evidence and the historical skill, they will get 2 points for having done both. This model is going to be seen throughout. So for example, in our next type of essay, the students could be asked to do something on periodization. In that particular case, once again, they're going to be asked to provide evidence in order to back up the arguments that they're making on periodization. They can get 1 point for doing this. If they want to get 2 points, then they're going to have to connect that evidence back to a historical skill. If they both provide the evidence and the historical skill, they would then get 2 points for having done both of these skills. A third possible essay that the students will see on the AP exam is going to be the cause and effect essay. Once again, following the same model, the students would make sure to provide evidence for the arguments that they are making. This once again will get them just 1 point. In order to get the 2 points, they have to make sure to provide the evidence, and then in their explanation, they would need to connect back to a historical skill. Once again, if they do both of these things, they get 2 points for having connected back to both the skill of evidence and the connecting back to the cause and effect relationship. A third possible essay the students will see on the AP exam is comparison and contrast. Once again, they are going to be asked to provide evidence. If they provide that evidence, they will get 1 point. However, we're going to want to see them go further and connect to the historical skill of comparison and contrast. If they do both of these things, provide evidence and the historical skill, they get 2 points for having demonstrated that they can do both of these historical skills. So we're noticing that the model is basically the same regardless of what type of essay that the students are going to come up against during the AP exam. The last thing that they will have to do is provide synthesis, and this is for 1 point. We've covered this before with the DBQ. The synthesis makes sure to connect with another time, place, or era, and I would suggest they do this in their concluding paragraph.